Afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I'm part of the corporate team here at Signworld. Thank you for joining our webinar today, this first day of February. Hopefully, wherever you are in the U.S., you're staying warm. I heard it's 20 degrees in Texas today, which just seems crazy. It's minus 20 here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I think regardless where you are, you got unseasonably cold weather. So hopefully you're staying warm. That said, excited to be the moderator for our session today. For those of you who have not attended or watched one of these webinars in the past, I'll just give you a very quick overview of what to expect. First off, we're going to have each of our current owners that are on our panel introduce themselves and provide some background information about themselves and their business. And then after those introductions, we're going to turn the floor over to our participants who have joined us live today. And each of them will go ahead and share a question for the panelists to answer for them, each answering, giving multiple perspectives. So with that said, let's go ahead and kick us off. And Larry, can you go ahead and introduce yourself for the group today?
Yep. Hi, I'm Larry Foster, and I am the owner of Signs and More. And I am located in Troy, Michigan, which is about 30 miles north of Detroit. I've been in business for about 22 years. I'm in a building, I'm in my third location, and it is 8,000 square feet. I currently have 14 employees. I think this year we'll do just over $2 million in sales. In the past year, my biggest customer has been cities, different cities, but we just completed a project in the city of Fraser for $100,000 for replacing their signs that say "Welcome to the City of Fraser." And this month we're completing another $100,000 project with replacing street signs in an entire subdivision. So those are good jobs for us. My background is actually in retail. I worked for Kmart for 27 years, starting out as a management trainee in the back of the store, and went through stores, districts, regions, ended up in the corporate office for 11 years, and I retired out of there as a vice president of operations for the company.
Wonderful. Thank you, Larry. Alex, if you can go ahead and give your introduction, please.
Yeah, I'd love to. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Maurer, and I run and own Spark Signs and Graphics in Mars, PA. If you're familiar with the Pittsburgh region, we're a suburb north, about 25 miles north of Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh is our market. I've been in business coming up on 7 years. It's hard to believe. And we're still in the same facility. It suits our needs. It was good to begin with, and it still is, although we're thinking about, what the next step might be. We have 2,000 square feet, and it's here in the North Hills, easy access to everywhere we need to be. I have 3 full-time employees, so we run pretty lean, but we're able to get everything done for our clients in one way or the other. Our sales projection for this year is $1.2 million. We've been real close to cracking the $1 million mark, and this year I feel really much more positive about it. We have had a great January, off to a good start, so feel positive about the year. My background is in advertising. I was director of client service for a national ad agency that had a satellite office in Pittsburgh. So I've spent most of my career in marketing, and then decided to go out on my own. And this was a really good fit with a lot of my skill set. It matches up with the skill set of running a Signworld shop. My biggest customer now is Eaton Park. If you're familiar with Pittsburgh, it's a family, still privately owned restaurant chain, about 70 restaurants in the tri-state area. They also have a dining, catering, dining, corporate and education dining division. So we do all of their interior signage. And we also do work for the largest health system, UPMC, several banks, our largest project in the past few years was a total rebrand for a community bank. It was a $300,000 project. So those don't come along every year. Wouldn't want to tell you that. I wish they did, but that's the type of really big meaty project that's out there. But all the other ones that we have are great. So.
Very good. Thank you, Alex. And next, let's go to our next participant owner, Kelly Hanaway. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, Kelly.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Jeannie. Hi, I'm Kelly. I run the Milwaukee Sign Company in the frigid Milwaukee area here. So we serve the metro area of Milwaukee, community around here. And I've been in business now for just over 2 years. We actually incorporated in 2020 and then moved in 6 months later. So, we've been in business like 2 years. So maybe 2 years, 3 months, pretty new, relatively speaking. We're in a facility that's about 3,300 square feet. 2/3 of that is office and a third of it is shop, which I wish was the other way around, but it is what it is. It's a nice space. It suits us well right now. We have 3 employees here, and we are hopefully over dinner on Friday, I'll be hiring my 4th, which is a project manager. And hopefully that we come together on terms and she comes and joins us soon. And we really have also 3 1099s that are, that work almost exclusively with us. And they're mostly installers, and they do the majority of installation for us with bucket trucks. We don't have one, trains and things like that. Our projection for sales last year, we landed for orders, we landed just around 900,000. And our goal this year will be $1 million. That's what we're shooting for, to be above, just north of $1 million, ideally. Our biggest customer to date, single customer, was a 220,000 square foot Assembly of God church that rebranded. So we did everything from channel letters to the monument to the indoor signage, ADA signage, dimensional acrylic, everything. And that was just over $100,000 for us, which is, like Alex said, those don't come around all the time, but they're great when they do. And our largest customer, I guess, if you look at volume, is a client called Superior Health, where we have had business from that account now in 6 different states once we started here, and we're successful. So we're able to branch out across North America, and we just hope that keeps rolling for us. My background, engineering, I was a director of engineering for Rockwell Automation, Johnson Controls, and I left corporate out of Quad Graphics, which is a very second largest printer in the world. So I understood, got a good understanding of color there, which kind of led me to, an interesting career in the sign industry. So that's kind of me.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Jack?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jack Warner. I joined Signworld 28 years ago, back in 1995, as a Signworld operation. I started in 1,100 square feet with 1 employee. I ended up in 5,000 square feet with staff of 11, doing about 1.3 million in sales. I then joined our founder and president, Ken Kint, at the corporate office to learn I sold that business, joined Ken at the office to learn his end of the business, finished buying him out now 9 years ago. I'm now the president owner of Signworld. So when I answer questions today, if it's going to experience running an operation, I'll speak from that perspective. If it goes more to training and policy, I'll speak from that perspective. Prior to Signworld, I ran a wholesale food distribution company, so logistics, juggling of projects, juggling of schedules. My largest customer was a regional developer for Subway with 200 locations. They were annually doing about $250,000 per year with that one customer. And that one customer started off with a $50 hour sign at one franchisee location and just grew to get into the corporate office.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, now the real fun starts. As I say your name, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with a question for the group today. And I'll call you out one by one based on when you joined our session today. So Lance, I had you registered as the first attendee. If you can share where you're from and go ahead with the question for the group today.
Hi, yeah, Lance Jordan here. I'm from outside of Baltimore, Maryland, in Ellicott City. And question, I guess, for the 4 of you is, how much vacation did you take last year?
All right. Well, I'm going to add a piece to that. How much vacation did you take in your first year, and how much did you take last year? Because you're going to find Larry's answer is very different than everybody else's. So,
Sure, yeah, that definitely is a range of experience going on, yes.
That's right. That's right. All right, Larry. Let's hear, what was it like the first year, and what's it like today?
Okay, well, the first year I took one vacation. We have a timeshare up in northern Michigan, and we have been going there for 42 years. And I went there my first year. Beyond that, I take a lot of vacation. I'm leaving next week I go every year to Punta Cana. So I will be going there. In March, I'm going to Florida for a week. In the spring, I take a week off to go fishing. In the summer, I take a week off to go fishing up in Canada. I take my week in Traverse City, that's the northern Michigan vacation. This year, we're going to throw in one more. We're going to go to Alaska and do that. It's our 50th wedding anniversary, so we're going to go up to Alaska, take the family. And then in the fall, we just take long weekends with some friends. And in the summer, I do play golf 3 days a week. So I get my time off.
I think we're going to start calling you Mr. Vacation, Larry Foster.
I'd like to rephrase my question. When do you work, Larry?
That's what the people around here say.
That's right. That's right. Well, Larry, you set yourself up for success. That's fantastic, and you well deserve it. So, all right, let's go to our second oldest owner, Alex. Talk about your first year and what's it like today.
Well, first I'll say I know some of Larry's staff. I've been to his place, and I know why he can take so much vacation, because they're amazing. So, but Larry also hires well. So my first year, we typically do a week at the Outer Banks. So I'm sure I went there. I can't even think, really 7 years ago. But I probably took, we didn't alter our schedule all that much, probably a few weeks. We had kids that were in school at that time. And the great thing is, you really work as much as you want and want to, but you have the flexibility. Our kids were in sports, so I could cut out at 3 o'clock and get to a field 15 minutes away and watch the sporting event, and maybe even go home and work a little bit that night if I needed to. So now our kids are in college, so we take not as many vacations, but short trips to see them in Knoxville and Columbus. So, 3-4 weeks time off, all set.
Very good. Thank you, Alex. Kelly?
Well, only having 2 years under my belt, not a lot, to be honest. But I have gotten away. But I've actually found it's one of the times, and I enjoy selling, making customer calls when on vacation, which of course my wife is not too thrilled about. So not too much right now of vacation, but again, it is, you do have flexibility. I will say that, and my kids are, my youngest just graduated from college. So I don't really have a nest here. So for me, it's not, I don't have the need to break away, but it's certainly there. And we're very flexible with our staff who do have children to go attend their events. And we always make time for that. And there's always time to do those kinds of things.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Jack?
I took my first vacation at six months. Year 3, I took a 11-day vacation to Tahiti and made one phone call during that time because it was 30, I can't remember how much per minute to go, so they had to make it good. But I was on the Little League field at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 days a week, managing my boys' team. So you're as far away from the business as you need to be for, you're on a normal day, you're out seeing customers. The customer is expecting to be at the desk. The staff is expecting to be at the desk. So will you be a little bit more connected on vacations early on and less later on? Sure, but for you to manage.
Great. Thank you, Jack.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to our next guest. Dell, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from for the group, and go ahead with your question today.
I was muted, sorry. I'm Dell Wortman. I'm in Southern Illinois, town of 12,000 called Effingham, Illinois. I own a printing company. I founded myself, started in my garage 32 years ago. Today, there are 7 of us as far as employees go. In my early 20s or mid-teens, I was a sign artist. I did a lot of truck doors locally for a lot of the trucking companies. So I did the old paint on metal, and then along came vinyl, so I know the business. Actually, Kelly, there is a Quad Graphics right here in Effingham, Illinois. I don't know if you remember that or not. So
Effingham sounded very familiar. Thank you.
Yeah.
You just refreshed my memory. Yes.
yeah. As far as a question, I don't know. I'm sitting here with my son. We were both thinking about, getting into signs and, to help supplement what we're doing with printing also. You got a question? As far as it goes, starting your own business, you don't get vacations, I've been at it 32 years in printing. My early years that I didn't vacation, but you do have flexibility. We already had a meeting with Jack last week, and we've been reviewing the material he sent us. So,
Well, Del, how about we table it? And if you come up with a question before the end of the session, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Right. Yeah, that sounds fine.
Well, thank you for joining. I'll come back to you towards the end of our time together today. Let's go to our next participant. I have Kevin Henry. If you can go ahead and take yourself off mute, Kevin, share where you're from and go ahead with the question today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for hosting this seminar. Very valuable. My name's Kevin. I'm based in Los Angeles, where we think 55 degrees is freezing, but I'm from Wisconsin, so I have perspective. My question is centered around the early days of revenue. I'm curious how long for each of you it took to turn a profit at the beginning, and also how long it took to drive enough revenue to pay yourself what your desired salary was, and any advice you have to be prepared to mitigate that gap.
Great question. It's always about the finances. All right, let's think about cash positive date. When were you able to get to your desired level of income, and any advice? Kelly, let's start with you as our newest owner.
Yep, sure. Thank you. I think we broke even probably, or not broke even, but when we were to the point where we could take money out, and we just watched our working capital budget as it grew, because initially I didn't take anything out. So as that grew with the business, we were profitable. We were above what we started. And I'm thinking that was probably about maybe month 3 or 4 when we started doing that. I've started taking out money. I am not back to where I was at my corporate level, but I really didn't anticipate being there yet. We have invested back into the business. Some of the gains that we've gotten over the short period that we've been in business. I'm thinking that in 2023, if we hit our projected targets at our current gross margin and net margin, that I will be pretty close to where I wanted to be. All in, we were probably in the black about $100,000 in our first year, and the end of our second year. So we've got some things to do to clean up both on the gross margin and the net, but that's definitely doable for us.
And any advice to mitigate that difference as you're not to your desired level of earnings?
Yeah, I think what we didn't do initially that I wish we would have done is some of the things that, where money's leaking and the margins aren't there. A lot of it is because we don't have good systems and processes in place that we adhere to. We have a lot of them. They're not institutionalized, and they're not complete. If they were complete and everyone followed the script, we would be a lot more profitable and have a lot more. And I would also have much more time to go out and sell more if things would run smoothly to the processes. So I would say, yeah, get those laid out and institutionalized as quickly as you can.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Alex?
We were probably break even at month 3 or 4, and then we're able to start taking money out maybe month 7 in the first year. It took a few years to get to where I was in my role in my ad agency. I think, and this is my personal experience, has nothing to do with Signworld or any other company. We did it at an awkward time when my wife had stopped working to be with our kids, and then I started a business. So I always like to suggest to people, and sometimes they don't have this, is that because it is you're starting a new business, so it's nice to have that other income stream of some sort to start out with, which I didn't have.
Very good. Anything you do differently other than have that second income?
No.
Okay, very good. How about you, Larry?
Well, I broke even in the business in the 4th month, and I began paying myself in the 5th month. It was probably by the 3rd year, I was finally achieving the salary that I wanted to make. But I think you also need to understand that you probably can live just as comfortably with less salary, because there are expenses that the business will cover that you're used to paying out of your own pocket. And when you're in business for yourself, your business pays a lot of those expenses. So you have to factor that in as well. As far as advice, I think today, probably the most important thing you can do is get your website up and running as quickly and efficiently as you possibly can. And then the other thing, just you've got to have courage. You've got to, if you want to build your business, you got to be a brave soul. And that means that maybe you're going to hire somebody before you're really ready to hire somebody. You're going to add to your staff, because your job is to bring the sales in, and then you've got to have the staff to ramp it up. And that's how you build your sales quicker.
Thank you, Larry. Jack?
You know, I was positive actually my 1st month in business, took my first check at 6 months, and back to corporate income probably at about 16 months. But our average to break even is 6 months. We encourage, in addition to the investment, you set aside an amount of money equal to not your W-2 income, because it was pre-tax, not your net income. You hopefully didn't spend it all. Whatever your monthly bleed is to run the household, equal to 1 year's worth, using some to supplement the modest year 1, saving some to supplement year 2, and hopefully by that time you're back to normal lifestyle. You know, to Alex's comment about a spouse, 2/3 of our operations do not have a spouse in the business. Many of them are married and do have either a spouse with an income, or they have a spouse that is a stay-at-home. But we have many singles as well, so it's not a requirement to do it. To go on to Larry's comment, it's tell the world. But I think another Signworld owner a couple of months ago made the comment of, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, every day you're making challenges, you're making expectations, you're setting things. So you just have to be willing to be proud of yourself, be willing to challenge yourself.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, let's go to our next guest. Terry, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with the question for the group today.
Sure, yeah. My name is Terry Heft. I'm from Chandler, Arizona, which is basically Phoenix, Arizona. So to the person's comment on 50 degrees is cold, it's freezing. We're having a very rough winter. This is the worst we've had in 10 years. So I need to find somewhere warmer. But I'm originally from Minnesota. So yeah, I know. But I guess my question is because I've been in logistics and technology for 29 years now. My biggest thorn in my side is hiring dependable people. So I'm just curious, in this, you know, vertical, is it just basically the same thing you're turning over and over? I just don't find people very dependable.
Great question, especially in the current climate that we're in today, Terry. All right, let's start with Alex first. Alex, tell us about finding people and how hard is it? What's your thoughts about the labor market?
So 7 years ago when I opened, I found a sign maker, and I found Barb through Craigslist. And when Jack and the team told me you're going to use Craigslist to find your first employee, I thought, well, that seems odd because I didn't use Craigslist at the ad agency, but it's a different vertical, different world, and Barb's still here. So I've been very lucky. I've had very little turnover, so I that's a testament to luck, and I suppose also I do treat my folks great. Both I pay them over the average and have spot bonuses, and we offer health insurance. It's a comfortable place to be. It's a good place to be. My other employees, I've had a few leave, one who didn't work out, but over 7 years' time, I've been very fortunate. So the good people are out there, and Signworld gives you the tools, partner firms that can help you find. And they also vet, Jack interviewed our sign maker Barb way back when, and so I had his valuable input. He and the technology team, because she could have talked a lot about printing, and I would have believed her, right? Because I didn't know anything about sign. So that was a nice safety check.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Kelly, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I kind of similar to Alex. My first employee was I found on Indeed, a sign maker, Tammy. She's still with me, and what she brought was not only a lot of knowledge and good things to my business, but also the network that she had established over her career as a sign maker. So she could tap me into a bunch of the resources. So that first hire is crucial. And I did have, I think and Terry both interviewed. That was really good for my first hire. My second and third, though, I started focusing on experience and people with a lot of experience in certain areas. And I had to let go of both of the employees, to be honest. And since then, though, I'm really I'm hiring for my culture. I'm hiring for good bones, and somebody with good character. And this stuff's trainable. You can train good people to do these things. And it's much more important that you get good, solid people than that you get experience, in my opinion. Your first one, yeah, you need some experience. The rest of them, you can train them. You just get good people that fit your culture. And that's kind of where we're going now.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Larry, your thoughts?
Well, I hired my first person, and she is still with me 22 years later. So, and as far as who runs this place on a day-to-day basis, it's her. But she is critical to my operation. I came out of retail. Retail has at least 100% turnover rate a year. So if you have 100 employees, you're hiring 100 people a year. This industry is at the opposite end of that spectrum. The people that come to work for you, this is a career for them. They stay. I have not needed to hire somebody other than to add to my staff in over 6 months. And I have 14 people. So I do, I lose somebody a year, but it's very low turnover. The actual hiring in the last couple of years has been much more difficult than it was 10 years ago. I will tell you that. But when you find somebody, they usually stick.
Very good. Thank you, Larry. Jack, your thoughts?
Before I give you my thoughts, we're going to start showing a couple of slideshows in the background. They have no audio to them, so we'll continue the questions while we're doing it. The first one will go showing some of the facilities inside and out, so you can see what operations look like. The second one will go to what is a sign, not only what you can make with the original equipment, what you're going to need to outsource, and then what some other unusual things might be. So it shows you the scope of the industry. The third slideshow will go to some of our Wall of Fame, showing some of the bigger, unique projects that Signworld have done, so you can see the scope of it. Larry hit it on the head. This is a career, not a job. As all of you are looking at different options that your business coach might be showing you, think about some of the service industries where to be successful, you have 20, 30 employees. We're on a constant cycle of in and out. So by the time you've run that business for 10 years, you've gone through several hundred employees. This is a business where you go through a handful of employees. Is there some turnover? That's just life, that's just nature. But it is a career for them, not a job. You hire carefully and nurture. They don't leave.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to our next guest. Ade, if you can take yourself off mute and share a question for the group today.
Thank you so much. So my question to the group is, how do people find your business?
Okay. How do you find how do customers find you? Larry, let's start with you. You started back in the day before there was even the web. So maybe you can talk about how they found you back then and how they're finding you today.
Yeah, it's changed dramatically. Back when I started, there was no website, so you depended on the yellow pages. And believe it or not, I spent about $48,000 a year on yellow pages. It was ridiculous. So that's how you did it. And then, and not only that, you always had to wait until they printed it. So if you opened up in January and they don't print them until November, you waited 8-10 months before you could even get into the book. So, but now, I mean, the key, as I mentioned before, is your website. Definitely your website is the most critical thing you can do to drive business. When you start, you're going to join the networking groups, and I'm sure people will talk to you about what groups are good. But then what you want to do is build that customer base. Like my business is probably 80 to 85% all repeat business. It's the same customers over and over again. And we really focus on taking care of the customers so that they want to come back to us. And that's really the key for long-term success.
Great. Thank you, Larry. Alex, how about you?
So it's evolved a bit. I was, as I mentioned, in the ad industry. So when I first opened, relied really heavily on a lot of C-suite people that I knew within large companies, medium to large companies in Pittsburgh, marketing directors that I knew in my network. And that was quite helpful. I joined a networking organization. I had a website. I've had a search company over time that has boosted my organic. I've also tried some paid. It hasn't worked as well for me. I'm fairly active in social media. Particularly, I hired a company the last few months to do that. But I'm not quite at the level where Larry is, but it's getting to that point. I'm probably 65% repeat business. And that's a beautiful thing. You cultivate customers and they want to stay because they're used to a good quality product at a fair price. And we form friendships in a lot of these relationships. So that's how we do things.
Okay, very good. Kelly?
Yeah, the first year it was almost, exclusively from my market leads from the internet driven. So all of the leads, I would say maybe probably 95% of them came from that mechanism. But then even in the short period of time I've been in business, it is a relationship building industry, and those people know people, and the kinds of clients to go to that where the business does have legs, where they are constantly making signs in large corporations and things, and you get those types of people and they refer you, and now my referral is probably close to 30% already, that my business has grown from just, and that is the best business. It just comes in, you don't chase it, and you just call on them and it comes in, and it's not starting over. It's really kind of easy work.
That's great, Kelly, in such a short time. Fantastic. Jack, your thoughts?
Rather than giving a thought back to each of them, how many cold calls have you done in your business? And is this a hard sale or is it a consultative sale?
I like it. Larry, how about you?
I have never done a cold call in 22 years. I'm not comfortable with it, and I won't do it. And when you go out for a sale, that's what scared me the most about this business. I have no sales background. It's the most fun part of the whole job. You go out, you get to meet people, you go out, you find out what they're looking for. They've already contacted you through your website or through a referral. And you go out, you take pictures, you get measurements, you kind of look around and kind of see how the offices are decorated or what they're doing. And that's a sales call. That to me is just fun.
Love it. Alex?
Yeah, I probably have stopped at a roadside and made one cold call over 7 years, but I'm much like Larry. I'm not into that. I've never been into that. It's very consultative, and you go into a place and you talk through what the client needs. And one point I wanted to make, I was thinking about this earlier based on a comment someone made is, there may be some things, sign types that you're not totally aware of. But you can answer in such a way as, I'm going to get back to you, or we can do something like that, because you really have the power of a much larger network behind you. Signworld, all of the partner firms that it gives you, all of the relationships you're going to build in your market that might not have Signworld ties, but there are other sign companies. We use other sign companies for certain products, and you're really using your staff and them and Signworld to get a lot smarter in any one area. So you'll push yourself and do signs that might seem a little bit crazy and something you don't feel that comfortable doing, but that's you almost have to do it to grow your business.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Kelly, your thoughts?
Yeah, never did a cold call ever. I was amazed to find out, how much business you could close by calling on people, being prepared, being accountable. You get there when you're supposed to get there and just be knowledgeable and yeah, be able to say, I'll get you that answer. I was to the point where 8 out of 10, I could have won on the ones that I actually pursued and called, and I would be throttling it back because I knew we couldn't handle the work. But I was just pretty shocked at how there's so many bad sign companies out there, how easy it is to win business. It's not hard at all. And I'm not any good at it. So
don't cut yourself short, Kelly. Yes, you are.
Green.
Very good. All right, let's go to our next guest. Mark, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from for the group and give us a question for today.
Hey folks, this is Mark Engman. I live in Washington, DC, and just appreciated talking to Jack about this whole process. It's awfully new for me. You've really answered a lot of my questions. I had questions about, just marketing, getting yourself out there, and about staff. And I guess the other thing that Jack had talked to me a little bit about is locating your facility. How hard is it to find a place that's, cheap enough to rent, yet close enough to actually be a good business location?
Okay. Would you like to frame a question around that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to learn people's experiences just finding an appropriate location. Particularly, I mean, I don't know what it's like in other cities, but DC property prices are just ridiculous right now.
Sure. Yeah, the real estate market's kind of crazy in a lot of places in the country. Let's go ahead. Let's start with Alex first. Alex, how'd you find your space? Any insight into the commercial real estate market in your area today that you can share for Mark?
Sure. So I know Signworld has a resource to find to get started in many markets. I did it a little bit differently. I used a local Remax agent and really found a perfect spot. It's 10 minutes from where I live. It's accessible to the main highway down into Pittsburgh. So if I do move, it would be closer to that highway that gets down into Pittsburgh. But it's a great space. I think when I start looking, I'll go back to the same agent. And the nice thing about this concept is you don't need to be in front of people. In fact, I would argue you don't want to be in front of people. It's not a retail organization. I'm thinking of the fast signs here in my area in Wexford, PA. It's in a strip mall, and I wouldn't want people walking in all throughout the day asking for a banner. I want big, meaty commercial projects. Not that we'll turn banners down, but that's really where you're going to grow your business. So you can really be in a industrial park, in any type of building that suits you. So I think there's a lot more flexibility in the types of spaces that you can be in.
Thank you, Alex. Larry, your thoughts?
Well, I've moved 3 times, so I used the Signworld realtor, and he did an absolute fabulous job for me in my first location. You go around and take a look at the market. He searches the market, and between the two of you come up with a lot of different places to look at, and he negotiates additional rent, and he gets the prices down. So that's a great resource. When I started, it was a little bit more of a retail type of a location, and I paid top dollar, and it was awful. I had those people that Alex talked about walk in, the little lady, the grandma that wanted to make a banner for her granddaughter, and you could talk for hours about what color balloons they want on their banner. That is not the business that you're looking for. My second location, I was buried, absolutely buried at the end of a location where it's just these big buildings, and it was great. It was a much better location than that prime location that I had on a main road. And then the third location, I bought my own building, which is great. I mean, obviously I love that, and I've already paid the building off, so I own it. But you don't, like Alex said, you do not need to be out where there's lots of traffic. You're using your website and all the other resources to bring the business in.
Thank you, Larry. Kelly?
It took us about 6 months from the time we started looking to find our space. And I did utilize the Signworld resource. It was phenomenal. Agreed. Our areas, I could get, and the biggest issue we had is we could find a lot of space at maybe 10,000 square feet that had, a dock and or a drive-in door. And a lot of them that were smaller had only the dock door. And, of course, we wanted to do wraps in our shop. So we were picky, and we just waited till the right space opened up and at the right price. And we kind of had some pretty strict requirements, but we got what we wanted, and it took about 6 months. And so we're really happy with where we are. We're on a drag, but not in a retail space at all. So I would agree with what everyone said about not being near a retail space. You don't want that at all.
Thank you, Kelly. Jack, any thoughts?
Mark, you are in a what's the right word? A little bit more expensive market, but we have many others that are in the New York, New Jersey, California, other markets that are as expensive. And the good news is competition is paying the same as you are, so that's not that you're at a disadvantage. Alex, you went to a location that didn't have a garage door, and yet you've been fine without that. So we can work with a lot of adaptive things to figure out what makes sense. Good news is you're looking for industrial space. Good news is you're probably only going to be there for a few years. And if you're one of the smarter ones, you'll be like Larry and move off and buy a building. So you're ready to retire. You have the equity built from that as well.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, let's go to our last guest, Brian. If you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and give us a question for the group today.
Hi, yes, I'm Brian Grunsky. I am in Laurel, Mississippi, home of Hometown from HGTV. We are, we've had a lot of conversation about temperature. The basic thing we got to talk about is we're wet. I don't know what it's the wet time of year. So I've been working on, my wife and I are looking at starting a business. We're in the process of getting everything squared away and prepared for that. And, most of the questions I had have already been asked, mainly around people was a big one. And then, revenue and things like that, which I'm fortunate talking about the other, some of the other questions. I plan to keep working while my wife is going to be the mainstay at the business until eventually it becomes too much of a burden and then I get to say goodbye. So I don't know that I have another question other, from the standpoint of, based on what I've heard today and, that kind of thing. I don't know that I have another question. It's basically everything's been asked.
Okay, no problem, Brian. If you come up with one on the very bottom of your Zoom window, you can click the button to raise hand. In fact, I'll offer that to the group at large for anyone who might have a second question, as we still have time for a few more. Let's go back to Dell, who didn't have one originally. Dell, if you have a question, go ahead and take yourself off of mute and let us know what that is at this time.
Yeah, I got to thinking of those who own a lift truck or you don't own a lift truck. What's a percentage of the stuff you do in the shop, like yard signs or banners, like, the smaller jobs? compared to the lighted jobs that need electrical work done? Do you hire electricians? What is the percentage from those lighted signs compared to the others?
Okay, so let's phrase that just a little bit differently, if you don't mind, Del. Let's ask what the percent of work is in-house produced versus outsourced in general, and then the electrical signs and how they go about outsourcing those projects that require that. So Larry, I think you probably have the most in-house capability. Let's start with you first.
All right, well, we do about 90% in-house. We do just about everything with the exception of electrical signs and installations of the signs that are electrical. Everything else is pretty much done in-house. We've got CNC routers, we've got engravers, I have a paint booth. So we have capabilities of doing all of those things. We have 2 bucket trucks. But when I started, we did probably, I don't know, 75% of our business was in-house, 25% we outsourced. And then it kind of shifted. We started outsourcing more and more. And then when that business starts growing, you start buying the equipment to bring it back in-house. So it's an ongoing process.
Very good. Thank you, Larry. Alex?
So we have always been quite heavy on outsource. And when I say heavy, it's probably about half and half right now, which in talking to some of my other peer Signworld owners at the same stage, 5, 6, 7 years is maybe a little bit higher than normal. It's just a model that has seemed to work well for us. I'll never forget in our training, Jack told us, go introduce yourself to your neighborhood, and part of your neighborhood is your competition, because some of that competition might be your partners initially. And that fast signs that I mentioned earlier, they basically printed my first sign before my printer arrived. And we continue this day to have relationships with other sign companies that have things CNC route that can get the work done. So I've decided at this point to keep a lower staff count, and we outsource a fair amount of our work. So 2 of my employees are project managers, and their job is really managing projects, quality control, relationships with our partner firms and with our clients. Do I want to, as part of our growth, do I want to invest in technology? Yes, just haven't gotten to that point yet.
So Alex, with 50% outsourcing, what kind of mix of providers are you using to outsource those products or projects?
Well, the types, they're both Signworld preferred partners, channel letter manufacturers, sign cabinet manufacturers, ADA signage. Locally, there could be people that print direct to surface versus applying vinyl. So we have several printers that do work for us. So it's a variety of work, and we don't have a niche. Some owners focus on car wraps or this and that, but we really we love to do really every type of sign, wall murals, lobby signs, things where we can have a higher profit margin is preferable. But hope that answered your question.
It does. And I'm going to ask one more. As you don't have bucket trucks like Larry does, how do you do the installation work for those types of projects?
Yeah, it's never been a problem. We have a gentleman who owns a bucket truck. He does a lot of lighting work for companies. So, and he has some sign background. So he can put flat panels up. He can hook up some signs for us, lighted signs. And then we go to other sign companies who have the bucket trucks, crane trucks. Of course, they're paying higher insurance. There's more risk. They're purchasing those or leasing those equipment. But I'm also paying for their expertise. Signs can be simple, but the more they can become more complex when you add electricity and other components. So it's good to have people who know what they're doing, and it goes to the whole quality. I could mask thinking I know what I am doing and rent a lift or a bucket truck and try to do it myself, I just don't think that's going to end well. So I surround myself with experts, and that's how we've grown our business.
Very good. Thank you. Kelly?
So today we're probably not where we want to be. We're probably about 30, maybe 33%, in-house and the rest outsourced. And as the margins aren't as good on the outsourced stuff, of course, you've got to have a lot of it if you're trying to hold your numbers. But, we found that one thing that when we started off is we wanted to build a bench of installers. Installation was a problem for us. It was our Achilles heel, trying to get a lot of signs done on the outside. And so just when you thought you had a couple of groups or a person or a team that you could rely on, well, they changed their model, or they changed their prices, or they got busy. So we started to develop lists of, these are our masons, these are our electricians, these are our guys with buckets, these are our guys with cranes, and always take that list and refine it. And when you think you're comfortable, you should be uncomfortable, and you should be building that list and continuing to do that. And so we doubled down on that. So that's why we're so heavily outsourced, because we've got so many networks, and it's kind of easy to go to. But over time, we do want to have the business drive the need for us to bring that stuff in-house. And we will. Right now, we're working basically off the original package that we got when we started Signworld. And that suits our needs just fine for what we're doing. But we do want to bring in a router. We believe we're going to get into the routed signs and maybe a channel bender, metal bender, and do some of that in-house. But right now, we're probably 33 to 66 outsourced.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Jack, any thoughts?
Well, a couple of things. One, the world of signs is so diverse. It's everything from an image to billboard. So rather than bringing in all the equipment, which would take much more space, a much bigger investment, and a steeper learning curve, we've simplified it, where we'll give you a set of equipment that will make a great majority of the signs, and then a roster of manufacturers to make the other things. So from day one, everything's deliverable. Then over a couple of years, determining what niche you want to get into. Some Signworld owners never bring in more equipment. They're very content to just outsource it and keep that model. And Alex and Kelly are talking about doing $1 million in revenue with original equipment. Many others, we probably have about 50 or 60 that have brought in their own CNC router. We probably have about 60 that have brought in their own bucket trucks. Some of those are the same owners. Some are different, where they have one but not the other. We've got a number that have brought in flatbed printers. We've got many that have brought in engraving equipment to do braille signs. We've got many that have brought in paint booths to do other things, and on and on. While my operation made our own channel letters, I outsourced the installation because I had a great guy to do it. So part of what you bring in is based on supply network you have and what you want to take on and tackle and not, and grow from there. So when you're ready to grow, talk to us about other owners that have done similar to what you're doing, so you can learn from them of where to buy and what to buy and how to charge for and how to manage and do, grow from there.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, I don't see a raised hand, so I'm going to go ahead and interject another question for the group that's not been asked that usually is. And let's talk about competition. Lots of sign companies out there. As you were considering joining the sign business, what were your thoughts about the competition, and how do you look at the competition today? So Alex, I'm going to start with you first.
Never was really a thought in my mind. And even though when we started out with Signworld, they said, don't worry about it. I talked to the other Signworld owners, the existing owners, they said, don't worry about it. There's plenty of business out there. And I really think there is. I think Kelly made the comment earlier that it is amazing how many sign companies can just fumble over themselves. I'm not saying we're perfect, we're far from it, but there's real opportunity for a company that responds quickly, is proactive, has good quality, builds its reputation that way, and people will come back and they like to work with companies and people like that. So I'm not worried about the competition. We even occasionally cross paths with some of the sign companies I've mentioned that outsource to do work for us. Occasionally we run into them. And sometimes we get it, actually, sometimes we don't, but I don't lay awake at night.
Very good. Thank you. Larry, how about you?
It's a question I always squirm when people ask. I feel like I should have a great answer that this is what I do to combat competition. This is what I do to beat them. But the fact of the matter is, I'm like Alex, I don't worry about it. I have my own set of customers, and I almost feel like I own those customers. And as long as I'm focused on them, taking care of their business, being responsive, maintaining the quality that they expect, they're my customer and they're not going somewhere else. So you really don't have to worry about competition.
Thank you. Kelly, your thoughts?
It's kind of just echoing the same comments. Yeah, I don't worry about it either. It just doesn't really come into play. And even when on occasion there's a Signworld guy and then we'll chat, right? Hey, you quoting this, I'm quoting this. We collaborate on things, and it's actually a strength. And many times we've both quoted both ways, to collaborated on projects where we give quotes in two different names. One of us will win it, and then we just kind of split. But from the competition perspective, what we have going for us is I probably worked with Signworld owners in 6 or 7 different states on projects, and that's powerful when you can do that, because not everybody can do that. And you got boots on the ground that you can trust in another state. It's very powerful from a sales perspective. It just is. And I'm just leveraging the heck out of that.
Thank you. Jack, any comments to that question?
I had 10 within a mile, 300 in the county. Larry will tell you he had 250 in a 20-mile radius. There's lots of sign companies out there, but the reality is 90% of them are owned by a former sign maker who is very good at making the sign, but is very single task focused, is not showing up for the appointment as they promised, isn't getting the quote back quickly, isn't delivering the project on time on budget. So if you do what we teach, you become the anomaly in the market. Competition is just not an issue.
Thank you. All right, I do see Kevin has his hand raised, and we're going to go ahead with him for our last question today. Kevin, go ahead with the question you have for the group.
Great, and thanks again, everyone. Really helpful information.
Oh, hold on, Kevin. I think yep, you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Sorry about that. Thank you all. My question was, in the very first days of being open, when you don't have a pre-existing body of work to point to, was that ever problematic? Any advice to get ahead of that? And can you leverage other Signworld partners as examples to show trust and validity for when you're coming out of the gate?
First sales call, how do you convince the customer you're capable of doing it when you've never done it before? I love it. All right, let's start with you, Larry.
I remember
Go ahead, Jack.
customer.
Sorry, one question.
I thought this question was more of, what do you do if you don't have enough work to keep your staff busy in the beginning?
Kevin, can you clarify?
Well, both are great questions, but I was asking, to point to if a potential client wanted to see the work you've already done, you don't have anything to show, what would you advise in that situation? If that even comes up.
Absolutely. Larry, first sales call, never done it before. How did you approach that?
Scared to death. I mean, I was so worried that, I was practicing the night before and I was studying up, and it was a ground sign. It was an electrical sign. And I was convinced that they were going to ask me, what kind of aluminum is it? How do you build it? What's the wiring? And I don't know any of that. It was so not that way. I knew more about signage than that customer did, and all they wanted to do is say they needed a new sign. Theirs was old, and I had my sign maker who had about 10 years experience come with me, and it was an easy sales call. We actually won the job, and it was a big nothing. But the other piece of that question that I heard was, you don't have something to show them because you're new. And that is, you can leverage Signworlds. We have about 8 to 10 in our market, and I help them literally every single day, and I can get help from them. So we work well together.
Thank you, Larry. Alex?
I think what I would add is the partner network, the preferred partners that Signworld puts together. I'll pick one out of thin air, a Sign Fab out in the Midwest. They have a vibrant gallery of work. So if you're buying your lighted signs from them anyway, then talk to them. I'm sure they wouldn't mind sharing some of their examples, and you talk through it as here are examples of lighted signs that we can do for you. Signworld, you could go that way. I think the other thing is I wanted to mention, I've taken several projects where the profit margin was perhaps lower because I knew that it was a brand. We did work for Aflac. We've done work, PPG was a client, but some of those brands, Starbucks, Chipotle, we did a sign in a development, a plaza, and it was actually for the developer, not those brands. But I know the power of a brand, and if I could show that we've done a sign even early on that has a Starbucks logo and a Chipotle logo, that breeds a lot of confidence for folks.
Yep, absolutely. Kelly?
Yeah, only to, I agree with what's said. So the first sales call, we tapped into the vendors for supply kits. We made a lot of our own signs that we were, we were just putzing, learning how to use some of the equipment, transferring vinyl onto acrylic and ACM and just making signs. So we kind of had that going for us as well. But I kind of would agree with what Larry said. It's like the signs themselves, it's not like they don't get into the how much amperage is this thing going to draw kinds of questions. They're really not like that in the sales call. And you can, if you just get back to the customer with the answers and the specifics that they need. I'd never found it to be intimidating, and I never sold before I started doing this. And then the only other thing I would say is I tapped into and grabbed another Signworld owner. His name's Chad, and I just dragged him and we collaborated on the first sales call together to kind of just see how it's done, how they do this stuff. So you're not like over prepared like in a corporate world, because you don't need PowerPoint presentations usually. And I was going down that path, but I just kind of just learned that way really fast.
Very good. Jack, any additional comments?
Just a couple things. You've got more knowledge about the sign than the customer probably does. You're really there just to ask a tactical question, then let them know you're going to go back to the office and put together a proposal. Being able to reach out to the other Signworld owners, the supply network, you're a sign maker that has lots of experience. No matter what we teach you, the next product is going to be unique. And Larry will tell you even 20 years later, many of the products are still unique where you got to go, let me figure it out. But that's all okay. You can have a website fully loaded with lots of pictures showing what you're capable of doing. So you have the resources.
Absolutely. Very good. All right. Well, I do see we're at time, and I want to be considerate to our owners who have already given us an hour of their precious time in the day to be on our panel. So Kelly, Larry, Alex, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us. We appreciate you. And for our participant guests, we appreciate your interest in learning more about Signworld. We look forward to the additional conversations forward to help you as you make the decision if this is the right fit for you in the next chapter in your life. And with that, we'll conclude our webinar for today. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Wednesday, and thanks for joining in.